guy that sent the cops over to dig that garden. Anyway, today we do usher in, which is beautiful. We usher in the empowering themes for July, which is freedom and detachment. So those two go hand in hand. As you all know, but we need to mention it today, tomorrow we celebrate an event that happened 200, how many years ago?
235 years ago.
When the founding fathers, the Continental Congress decided to sign the document that declared something that's pretty special. The very fact, and it's the essence of our human nature, the very fact that we're born in this dimension of physical dimension, the very issue is the day that we're born, that is the day that we innately accept and have the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What is really kind of neat about this is the Declaration said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It did not say and happiness. Have you ever thought about that? And today I want to talk about that a little bit. It's part of what we've got to say here because about 100 years after the signing of that declaration, a French philosopher named Rousseau, and I believe he lived in the 1800s, 1818 to maybe 1867, he came out and said this. He said, yes, we are all born free, but wherever man is, he's in chains. And that paradox exists to this very day. And there's a direct correlation here when we start talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because these glorious people who signed this documentation left room for our own personal involvement in freedom. Sure, when we're born, we have life, liberty, but we also have the pursuit of happiness, but we've got to do some work to get to that happiness. Isn't that interesting? And so today we start looking at and we start functioning on some things here. Freedom has two dimensions. And thank you, Joanne, you really led into this talk. The first dimension is the outer freedom. You know, the fact that I'm born, I have the right to life, liberty. But I also have the right to pursuit of happiness. And those kinds of freedoms, we hire people to make sure that we're not infringed upon. We hire people in elections. We hire people in governmental agencies. We also hire people to go to war, to make sure that the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness will not be infringed upon. That's our duty assignment, is to ensure that somebody doesn't come along and take it away from us. But that second freedom is more complex. And that's what we call the inner freedom. Mystics calls this freedom authentic freedom. And that inner freedom is really awesome. It's our duty assignment to do the work so that we can establish our enhanced life. So this inner freedom is nothing more than a simple statement. We have the ability to choose our response to life. That's all it is. It's our ability to choose how we will respond to life itself. Kind of interesting. In other words, if we're going to, and we do this, experience the ongoing, everyday conflicts that we are here to experience, if we are to experience a whole enchilada of human life, and that's what we're here to do, then our duty assignment is to experience these things at a higher vibratory level and not being attached to the outcome itself. And that's where we come into this idea of the pursuit of happiness. We cannot experience happiness when we allow ourselves to be attached to or actually confined to the ongoing dynamics of human life. Just to give you an example of all this, a guy named Harry, he was having some very difficult times. Every April, he ended up in the hospital, or at least in his doctor's office, because he experienced high blood pressure, he experienced pains in the stomach, he was dizzy, sometimes he'd fall over, and so he goes to the doctor every year around April. And basically the doctor would have to either determine why is this condition as such, or put him in the hospital for observation. After several years of going through this, he decides to go to his New Thought minister this lady minister, and he told her the situation. Well, it didn't take much discussion to have the aha moment express itself in the situation. She said, so this condition happens every April. Well, isn't that tax time? And he said, yes. And she said, well, is there a correlation here? Do you have to end up paying taxes every April? Is that what your condition is? Is that what's causing it? He says, oh no, I never have to pay additional taxes. He says, I do my own tax returns, and I make sure I have enough deductions to where I not only don't have to pay additional taxes, but I get some taxes back, money back. And then she made this statement. She said, well, that's interesting. How do you feel about that? She said, oh, I get a little depressed. I feel guilty because I'm afraid that I might get audited. And she solved the problem, the aha moment, that he was attached to that situation of paying taxes. He was immersed in it. And being immersed in it, it was controlling his emotions, and it was destroying his body. And what she came out and said was, rather than spend thousands of dollars on hospital bills and for the doctor and medication, why don't you spend a few bucks and hire somebody who can do your taxes and be honest about it? And he did, and so it resolved his issue of going to the hospital. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Hurrah for Harry. Yeah. How many of us are confronted with on a daily basis with situations that want to suck our energy? It wants to take the control of our emotions. It may put us into a position to where we're functioning at a very low level of consciousness, where it really technically destroys our body. How many times we are confronted? And we might say, well, wait a minute, we're here to enjoy this world. Yes, but the pursuit of happiness given to us by the Declaration of Independence says that we need to do something about how to do that. When this minister looked at Harry, she said, I will do the treatment for you. She said, I want a treatment that I won't have to go to this hospital any longer, that I'll have a better April. And she says, I'll do the treatment, but it isn't going to work. You have to do the work. Many of us who are ministers and practitioners, we have people coming to us saying, hey, I want this to experience in my life, I want that. But they're not willing to really do the work that it takes to experience what they want to manifest. And she says, I will do my work, but you're going to do yours. And here, the duty assignment that brought him to this realization was pretty awesome. She says, you need to listen when you come to church. You need to do some reading. You need to figure out that what you put in mind and what you focus on expresses in your life. You need to do all these things. And then when you do all these things, then you will have a manifestation of what you desire. It's entirely up to you. Isn't that cool? This is good. And it's kind of interesting. We have the Founding Fathers give us this Declaration of Independence. Our problem as human beings is in this pursuit of happiness, we need to have a declaration of our own independence. And what is that independence of? We are so much under the control of this thinking process. I don't know about you, but I face this probably on a daily basis, where the conditioned mind, that part of our beingness that is pretty much egoistic in a way, which evaluates past and then considers the future, that brings in fear and doubt. How many of you ever experienced this? Do you experience this ever?